historical roots at many levels aren't reflected in the bio, including the fact that my dad was born and raised in Texas as a Baptist, my mom a Catholic near Detroit, and they married. My in-laws, Russian Jew from Brooklyn, Danish Christian from Denmark, married and created my wife, and so we are parents also. I have 2 wonderful daughters, one at Northwestern, one at Columbia. Yes, I am poor. And I am very proud and very happy. I work briefly, and it's interesting to be in the corporate sector because I've worked across sectors my whole life. Started at Cook County Hospital, wound up professionally at Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, working the AMA and the AHA in between, and I now do consulting primarily in healthcare, all focused on cultural competence and diversity. But my clients range from a group like NARAL Pro-Choice Massachusetts with 5 employees to a group like Merck, very different for-profit organization, and working for the feds and other government as well. So it's fascinating to be here in cross sectors and welcome our youngest member, and talking with all of you.
And I forgot to mention, as I forgot to remind myself, if you could please turn off your cell phones.
Leading by example. With you.
So I'm Teresa Chapa, and I work for the Office of Minority Health at the Department of Health and Human Services. And I had the great fortune of about 6 years ago to implement behavioral health into our office, which never existed there before. So it's been a very cool experience, and I can see that I've worked with a lot of people. Well, like he said, you're my peeps, so there are a lot of people here that I have worked with. And one thing that we were talking about last night is how few that we really are, especially minorities or people who work in diversity issues or minority health or minority behavioral health and the workforce development piece. We're just so few, so we do cross paths a lot. Even I've heard her name and seen your name at, I guess it's integrated care meetings. So anyway, here's my story. I'm married. I have 2 kids that are really my cousins that we adopted, and they're teenagers. They're really cool. One is going to use Chicago. She doesn't know what she wants to do, but I'm very proud of her. The other one is doing finals right now, and just recently a niece came from LA to live with us, and we live like in a suburb of Washington, D.C., so she thinks of it as the country. You know, if you're from Venice or LA West Side or whatever, it's a very different experience. I looked at the different settings that were posted. I've worked in about 5 of those different settings. I worked for community mental health. I started off as a nurse, so in the late 70s, I worked with individuals that were getting out of state hospitals in those days. So it was a really great and profound experience for me that made me really have great appreciation for persons with serious and persistent mental illness. Then as time went on, I was very lucky that there were individuals that had walked before me, and they were the first to kind of graduate, like minority individuals to graduate in PhDs in psychology, and those persons mentored me. They really embraced me. Carmen Carrillo, I don't know if you know some of these individuals from UC Berkeley in the West Coast. I was in San Francisco, so it's 20 years. But if it weren't for those individuals, I don't know that I would have known to take that path. I didn't come from that kind of background or family that said, we really want you to get a PhD or an MD or some high level of degree. We know you're gonna work, but you know, we didn't know what that was gonna be. So really, if it weren't for those persons, so I really take it upon myself. I feel that it's imperative and my responsibility to be there for other people and mentor and provide access to persons coming up the chain, people who are really interested in our field, in our work, to be there for them and to help them along. Thank you so much.
I'm Michael Guest. I go by Mike. I wish I could go by Bo, which is a great name. It's a great name.
I'm glad to share. There are a few of us.
I'm at the government table, I think, because I used to be in the Department of State, the U.S. Department of State, for 26 years. That was my career. And I during that career, I focused largely on NATO policy and democracy kinds of issues, which are not as distinct as they may sound. In fact, I found a very harmonious career throughout my time there. About half of that time, a little more than half of that 26 years, I was at senior leadership level positions in the department, ranging from deputy executive secretary, sort of the office that runs the building, so to speak, in terms of the paper flow to the secretary, to principal deputy assistant secretary for legislative affairs, and finally as ambassador, before coming back and running the leadership and management school at State Department, which I was asked to do because Secretary Powell was secretary at the time, and he was focused on trying to get real active leadership lessons into the way we train, which was a great thing. So I finally left in 2007 after having been the first openly gay Senate-confirmed U.S. ambassador. I left over LGBT issues, which had not defined my career to that point, but I felt it was unfair to my partner to be asked to go overseas in service to our country, really, without having the same kinds of trainings and benefits and understanding of responsibilities in the community that could have been taught, but that the administration wouldn't allow to be taught, even though there was an empty seat sitting next to me at all these seminars. So I left over that reason. I co-founded an organization called the Council for Global Equality, which is a coalition of 21 organizations. About half of them are classical human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch, Human Rights First. The other half are LGBT advocacy organizations. And there are a few outliers like the Center for American Progress, which focuses on progressive policies more generally, more broadly. And basically our goal is to try to avoid stovepiping, get the organizations to work together, do common messaging, share information, and try to work on things as a team, basically using classical leadership training that I guess all of you are familiar with. I stepped down from that briefly after founding it, to join the Obama transition team 4 years ago, and then chose to go back to it because it was a new direction for me. It seemed more exciting than going back into the administration, even though I supported this president very much at the time, still do. But it just seemed like a new opportunity. It has opened my mind in some ways. It has been a huge challenge in others to go from a decision-making style that you have in the U.S. government that some of the folks at this table certainly are familiar with, to working in an NGO, collaborative NGO space. And maybe that's something that we end up talking about in the course of the day. I now live in Sonoma County on the West Coast. As soon as I left the State Department, my partner, my husband now, 17 years, my husband looked at me and said, "We're not staying in Washington, are we?" And we went through a decision-making process about where we really wanted to spend our lives and our time together. So he's the most important thing in my life in many respects, and he's a teacher out in Sonoma, and we are about to start a lavender farm, so it gets better. So I had to throw that in. And I should say that although I primarily identify with the Council for Global Equality, I'm actually an independent consultant. I chose to be senior advisor rather than a positional authority kind of place in the council, so it preserves my options. And I do some leadership work with corporations. I do some public speaking. I do a lot of different things just to keep the mind alert and active.
I'm Ann Dobmeyer. I'm an active duty psychologist in the U.S. Public Health Service. And most people wonder, what is the U.S. Public Health Service and what kind of uniform are you wearing? So the Commission Corps of the Public Health Service is one of the 7 uniformed services, but we don't fall under the Department of Defense. We actually fall under the Department of Health and Human Services, kind of under Surgeon General, essentially. Prior to coming into the Public Health Service, though, I was active duty psychologist in the Air Force. So this uniform here looks very familiar to me as well, although not the eagles on the shoulder. My primary role, leadership role in my current position is my billet or my position is in the Department of Defense. The Defense Centers of Excellence, where my job is to be one of the leaders in the DoD for implementing integrated care, so behavioral health providers, psychologists, and social workers in primary care clinics, which is a very a large project that they're rolling out across the Army, Navy, and Air Force. So I am one of the leaders in that effort, traveling a lot with that. It's nice to be on a trip and traveling where I'm not training. that is a nice change for me. Some of my other leadership roles in my professional capacity, I'm a member of the Commissioned Corps Women's Issues Advisory Board, which was established by the Surgeon General just about a year ago, and also have been involved with ABEP and promoting board certification, and just this month took over as president of the American Board of Clinical Health Psychology. So I have some kind of established leadership roles that I feel fairly comfortable in, but I also have some very new leadership roles, and with very different groups of people. Kind of the government sector leadership and leadership styles looking a little bit different than what may be effective in some of these other contexts. So, and I guess on a personal note, I live in Dayton, Ohio with my husband and 2 young kids. I've got a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. And my main work team is based out of the Washington, D.C. area. But about a year ago, I managed to convince them that I could telework. So I work from home in Dayton and have managed to have I think a nice mix of kind of work-home life due to that experience.
You haven't mentioned that.
Can I apply for your job?
Yeah.
I am Shirley. I am the Chief Diversity Officer for the Air National Guard, comprised of 107,000 airmen and civilians. I work with the 3-star general, which is General Wyatt, and we basically are trying to increase field engagement of applying diversity principles and applications throughout the United States and worldwide. And how we're doing that is we are breaking it up into 7 regions and allowing a top leader in every 7 region to apply diversity practices with a strategic plan in every state, 54 states and territories. Just a little bit about myself. I am from Hawaii, born and raised from Hawaii. I'm of a Filipino background, and wanted to join the military. I was the only person in the family that joined the military. My brother also joined the Army, and always wanted to make this a career. Very, very different, about 25 years ago when women were supposed to get married and have kids. Well, I do have a child right now. He's 6 years old, Jesse, and I really believe that my focus is making sure that everyone is able to get to their level of potential, and then also ensure that they also contribute to the organization in the fullest capacity. So that's my goal as the Chief Diversity Officer. It's not just about the race, ethnicity, gender, but it's all about the diversity of thought and also the creation of innovation. And I believe that this is a type of atmosphere where we can create a lot of innovation, and I'm very, very proud to be here.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Linda Kutagawa, and I guess now I am the first representing the nonprofit sector table. I'm just now realizing why there were so many people from the American Psychological Association sitting here. Actually, there's supposed to be a second person. I don't know. I thought, wow, there's an awful lot of people here from APA. So I'm the president and CEO